Language awareness. Verb types. Before we start this input, let's just have a quick review. What are the 8 parts of speech? Pause the video and do this now. And here they are. Quickly discuss with your partner or jot down what their functions are in a sentence. To help review this, go over the previous input on parts of speech and/or refer to pages 53 to 57 of the pre-course reading booklet. Also ensure you look at the extra exercises on parts of speech that we periodically post online. So today we're talking about types of verbs, and this topic is closely linked to the input on modals and on tenses and timelines, so ensure you do not watch them spaced too far apart. What you see on this video corresponds to the task sheet, verb types and modals, so ensure you have this to hand. This video and the video on modals will use the same task sheet. We would also recommend you have plenty of notepaper to jot down your own notes and observations and information. Think first. What are the main types of verbs? Discuss this with your partner or group now, or think about it individually. If you have discussed it or thought about it, now do exercise 1. We have 6 sentences here. What is the difference between the verbs in bold and the ones underlined? So the verbs in bold are main verbs. These describe actions, states, or processes. Whereas the underlined verbs are what we call auxiliary verbs, which work in conjunction with main verbs to form tenses or questions. We'll look at further examples a bit later. The other verb type is what we call modal auxiliary verbs, or simply modals. We'll talk more about those in another video, although you'll see one come up in this video. So, having had a look at those previous examples, what are the 3 principal auxiliary verbs in English? They are do, be, and have. I find an easy way to remember this is to think about Austin Powers and his catchphrase. Now let's look at some tenses, which we'll cover in more detail in another input. Look at this prompt, which includes the subject and the main verb, that you can make sentences for in all 12 tenses. Pause the video and see if you can come up with all the sentences in the 12 different tenses with your partner or group. Jot these down, then resume the video. So hopefully, you should have come up with these 12 sentences. Now, in pairs or in your group, elicit all the 12 tenses with each other. One way in which you can do this is by one person looking away from the screen while the partner asks for the tense of Frank has been working a lot. Or what the sentence would be, for example, in the present continuous. Pause the video and do this now. Now that you have done this, look at the sentences again. Can you identify, where appropriate, what the auxiliary verbs are in each tense? So you will have noticed that the auxiliary verbs to be and to have come up when creating tenses, as well as the modal auxiliary will, which is used to create the future tenses. We will look at modal auxiliaries in a separate input. The one auxiliary verb missing is the verb do. In what instances do we use the auxiliary verb do in conjunction with main verbs? Pause the video, think about this, or discuss it with your partner. Then resume the video. So we see the auxiliary verb do, highlighted in yellow, when forming the negative present simple and past simple forms. Note that it doesn't appear in any of the other negative tenses. And here are the auxiliary verbs again. We also see the auxiliary verb do when forming the interrogative present and past simple forms. Again, note that this auxiliary does not appear in any of the others. We also use them to form short answers. Note that the main verb has already been referred to earlier, so that the speaker knows what the full sentence is, i.e., with "Does Frank work a lot?" and the short form answer, "He does," the verb work has already been used, so we know that the full sentence is "Frank does work a lot." Using auxiliaries enables us to give short form answers. We also use auxiliary verbs to form tag questions, which are the types of questions we use after statements as either a type of rhetorical question or as a way to invite the listener to either confirm or deny the statement. Tag questions are in the positive when the statement is in the negative, and in the negative when the statement is in the positive. We also use auxiliaries for emphasis, as in the examples here. Note that in spoken English, when we use auxiliary verbs for emphasis, they tend to be the stressed words in the sentence. So for example, Frank doesn't work a lot, does he? If you want to assure the listener that yes, Frank works a lot, you'd say, he does work a lot, or simply, he does. And we can also use auxiliaries for passives, as in the examples here. The car is being serviced at the moment. The Great Wall of China was built to protect China from invaders. They had been given plenty of provisions for their journey. I'm having the house painted before I move in. She had her nails done before the party. So the purpose here is to heighten your awareness of auxiliaries and to give you a quick preview of the tense work we will do in the tenses and timelines input. So to summarize, main verbs describe events, actions, processes, or states. Why do we need the auxiliary verbs do, be, and have? What do we use them for? Auxiliary verbs are used to form tenses, negatives, and questions. They're also used in tag questions, short answers, passives, and for emphasis. Closely linked to this input is the topic of modal auxiliaries, or simply called modals. We looked at the modal will in this input for the purpose of forming future tenses, but there's much more to them, as you'll see in the relevant video. In the next section, work with your group or partner to ask and answer any questions that you may still have after watching the video. Organize your notes and highlight the key information about what you have covered on the principal auxiliaries do, be, and have, how to form different tenses using the different auxiliary verbs, including the modal will, and the other reasons why we need auxiliary verbs. Prepare your questions and any comments that you want to raise with your group or with the tutors. Thanks for watching, and see you on the next OT.